this is one of my favorite songs. The one reason why, let me tell you one reason why I'm doing this. I don't know if you know that I'm writing a book about Thurman. Okay, it's called The Captain and Me on and Off the Field, and Dan Epstein is going to be the co-author. And this was in the album with The Captain and Me, the Doobie Brothers.
Wow, very cool.
Yeah, this is, I just found this out. You know, Joe and Lenny does all this work for me, and I had no idea how to do all this work. But again, Jack, I appreciate you coming on. Billy, you're the best, big guy. Hey,
I appreciate it.
You getting Jack on. This is, you know, I've been watching Jack for many, many, many years, and this is my first time I ever got to meet him. And I know that Coney loves him, and I read Coney's book, and your book is the best, Jack. And I just want to let you know that I'm going to get the Derek Jeter book, and Coney is a real good friend of mine, and I know that you've done an unbelievable job, and I appreciate you coming on. I really, really do appreciate you coming on.
Well, it's my pleasure, Ron. It's great to be able to speak to you, knowing what you have accomplished in your career and the athletic career that you have had. And best of luck early on that book. Get the word out to your friends. They're going to tell you as the book is getting closer. Pre-sales help. You want as many of those books sold early on. And it's always a pleasure to catch up with my man, Billy Pinckney, who, Ron, by the time it's all said and done, he's going to surpass anything you or I or David Cohn did. Just put everybody on that list. It's going to be Billy running the show.
I agree. I did his show about 4 months ago, Billy, and I have been totally impressed with you. And I know he loves you, Jack. And here's a guy that you, I remember coming up to the big leagues, and the first guy that really took care of me as soon as I got to the big league was Elston Howard. And Ellie, I was a young 17-year-old kid, and here's a guy that's been around, and this guy took good care of me, and Jack is taking good care of you. So you got to have a mentor. Here's a guy that is going to take care of you. This is a guy that you got to listen to, and this is a guy that you got to, I mean, everything he does, you got to listen and watch everything what this guy does. And that's how you become successful. And thank God that Ellie took really good care of me. And even to this day, Arlene Howard and Cheryl Howard are very dear friends of mine. And I see them at Old Timers Day, and I'll see them sometimes at the stadium doing some sweets and stuff. And, you know, people don't realize that baseball is it's a very, very small, and Jack would tell you, it's a very, very small fraternity. In his business, it's a very, very small fraternity. And we just lost, I don't know if you saw that Don Sutton just passed away. And Don lived in Atlanta with me, and we used to do a lot of stuff together, a lot of golf tournaments together. And of course, he was with the Braves for many, 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 many years. And, you know, unfortunately, I did not know he was sick. And all of a sudden, you know, I'm watching ESPN, and I saw Don Sutton passed away at the age of 75. And I'm saying I'm 72. And, you know, you look at this, and people don't realize that you have such a small fraternity that you have. And, you know, and thank God, you know, when we played baseball, we made no money, but we had great friendships. And that was the best part about baseball, about us, because after our career was over with, we became very, very, these guys are our brothers. And, you know, unfortunately, when people pass away, I mean, it really touches your heart, and you start thinking about the times that you face people, and you become good friends. And I know, Jack, when you played baseball at Fordham, when we went out to the game, and Paulie was always at the Yankee fantasy camp, and people, I mean, he could talk with the best of them. Blair could talk with the best. And what a wonderful person. And when he passed away, I think on the bowling alley, am I correct, Jack? And we found out about that, and I mean, it killed us. And I mean, it's such a small fraternity, and and you see these people, and you're out on the field, and you remember these guys that you've played with, and down in fantasy camps, a lot of guys, of course, they're a lot older, but these people are so close of friends with you, and it's I mean, it really hurts an awful lot. I mean, it really does, because it's like I said before, it's a very, very small fraternity, and it's what it is, Billy. And you got to get on Jack's hip and go with him everywhere he goes, because this guy's he's going to make you a superstar, big guy.
I appreciate it. Yeah, I mean,
Jack, let me ask you a question now, and I know that we're going to talk a little about baseball, about the Yankees, and what the Yankees, of course, did with DJ and Corey, and what do you think about those two moves right there?
Yeah, I think the LeMahieu move, Ron, we were all waiting for it. It was obvious that those two sides were, I think, always going to find a way to maintain and continue that relationship. But this has been such a strange and sluggish offseason that it just took a lot longer than people expected. I think it's a great move for the Yankees. Get LeMahieu at a $15 million a year salary. This guy's been their best player for the last couple of years. So a 6-year, $90 million deal actually shows some compromise, I think, on both sides, including LeMahieu's. In a normal offseason, without 2020 having impacted finances, LeMahieu's going to get a better salary and a bigger salary. But I think he likes playing in New York. I think he sees this as an opportunity to win a championship. So I think all Yankee fans should be thrilled to have that guy back. Just the way he hits, he's an aberration these days. It's all about power. And here's LeMahieu going line to line, shortening up his swing, and not worried about launch angle or exit velocity, although his exit velocity is good too. Just a pure hitter. So absolutely enjoy watching him hit. And then Kluber's interesting to me, Ron, and with baseball players, when you've had an injury, what can you come back and do? And I think that's what we're curious about with Kluber. He'll be 35 years old, really hasn't pitched much in the last 2 years. But when he did pitch from 2014 to 2018, he had a 5-year run that was phenomenal. 32 starts a year, about 220 innings per season. Sinker, cutter, smart out there on the mound. So the Yankees saw him and thought enough of him to give him that 1-year, $11 million deal. So I'm really curious to see what they can get out of him.
I think it's going to be unbelievable with Corey. If you look at his pitching, how he throws, everything what he throws moves. Yeah. Everything does. And it, just like Garrett Cole, I mean, Garrett, of course, is a lot younger, and but here's a guy that been around baseball for so many years. And the Yankees losing Tanaka, it looks like that. I think this is going to be a great fit for the Yankees. Of course, I never met him, and being with the Yankees, he's going to have a good present in the locker room. But if you look at DJ, and I was looking at him today. I was looking at the Bleachers Report for the Yankees, and if you watch one of those pictures that he had, one of his swings, I think he was going to right field on, I think to maybe right center. If you look at his weight to his launch angles and stuff, his weight is almost a perfect on his left foot to his back foot. And I mean, it's amazing his hitting ability, where everything comes very, very natural to him. Here's a guy that didn't take the home runs like a lot of guys in the Yankees. That's all they want to do is hit home runs. Here's a guy that why he's such a good hitter. If you look at somebody, I mean, he has more power than a Rod Carew. But if you look at a Rod Carew, and when Rod Carew used to hit, he used to hit everything to right center, to left center. And when he used to swing, his whole body was proportionally, just perfect at his, his core. His core is beautiful. It's not one of these people who have a crazy different types of swing or the big swing. He has a short, compact swing. And whoever, I mean, people don't realize that's natural. I mean, you could tell somebody how to hit a little bit, or if somebody's going into a slump, but you can't teach anybody that has the ability like a DJ. I mean, he's a typical hitter. I mean, he could wake up hitting, and that's what we used to call, what a great hitter. I mean, you could just wake up. I mean, you don't even need any BP. You take somebody like a Richie Allen, who's of course is a big, strong hitter, but who was just a pure natural hitter. And you look at DJ, and he's such beautiful to swing. And when he plays at different positions, I mean, people don't realize what this guy does for the game of baseball and what he does for the Yankees. And if the Yankees did not have him, they would have a major hole, I think, in the lineup. And I wish, I've been talking on this show a little bit about, Gary Sanchez, and everybody talks about Gary Sanchez. But Gary Sanchez, when I first saw Gary in the minor leagues down in fantasy camp, I mean, he had a beautiful swing also. I mean, he was going from gap to gap. Of course, he's a lot stronger than I think DJ is, but DJ is the hitter that the Yankees, this is who he is. I mean, he's a great hitter. But what do you think, Billy? You've been watching the Yankees for many years. What do you think?
It's a great move. He's such a special player, DJ. Kluber, another great move, I think. Hopefully he could be the guy that we saw in Cleveland of that caliber. And I think he will be as long as he could stay healthy. But Tanaka probably going back to Japan. Do we pick him another starter, cheaper guy? They have about, 10 million left on the salary cap, I think. That's most likely going to happen. And then I actually talked to Eric Kratz a few weeks ago about Gary Sanchez, and he talked about his ability and how solid he really believes he is, and he believes in him. And the ability for the Yankees to platoon both Gary and Higgy in that lineup and behind the plate is really special. And a lot of teams don't have that. And those two guys are very solid. I know Cole likes throwing to Higgy, so that could probably work into play really well next year.
And I guess I was really lucky, playing with Thurman Munson. All the pitchers like to throw to Thurman. Yeah. He was a guy. He was a pitcher's catcher. And,
any chance of the Yankees doing anything, maybe getting Castillo for the pitching staff?
Yeah, that rumor was around there, Lenny, and that rumor kind of took off and has been knocked down by both sides. I mean, the Reds GM said that they're not trading Castillo. If you're the Yankees, you would absolutely be interested in him. But there was one report by John Heyman that said the Reds wanted Gleyber Torres plus for Castillo. I'm not making that trade, not even close. Torres is 24. He's got 4 more years of control. You have a middle infielder who can hit 40 home runs. You're not trading him. So I think whether it's Castillo or any other controllable young pitcher where the salary hasn't reached a higher level yet, because Billy talked about how they're trying to remain under that luxury tax threshold, I think they'll be interested in all those pitchers. But what I do think is going to happen, we've seen how slow this offseason has moved. I think the closer we get to spring training and some of these pitchers who are out there who don't have deals yet, I think the Yankees are going to pick a couple of those guys off and bring them to spring training and see if one of those guys can figure out a way into the rotation. I don't think we're talking about a number 2 or a number 3 guy. I'm talking about a guy who would fill at the back end of the rotation, but have one of those guys in case someone like Davy Garcia isn't ready yet.
Thank you.
How about like Schmidt? This guy has really great. You know who he reminds me a little about? The Met guy, Matt Harvey. I don't know if you remember. Of course, you remember Matt Harvey.
Ron, I asked Aaron Boone about Schmidt specifically, maybe about 2 weeks ago. I was asking about some of their players. They love Schmidt. They don't think that Schmidt is just going to be a guy who contributes at the major league level. They think he has the chance to be an all-star, but they also think he needs a little seasoning. I think he starts the season most likely in the minors, and they'd like him to harness his fastball command. You know as well as anyone, if you can't control your fastball, you're not going to succeed at the major league level. So with Schmidt, the stuff is there. He's got a major league plus curveball, but they'd like to see him be more consistent with the fastball. And the other thing the Yankees love about him, and as reporters like myself and Billy and anybody who interviews him, this guy's got a lot of confidence, and he kind of walks the walk and talks the talk. He'll go out there and he'll tell you, hey, Clark, what happened on that curveball? Well, I lowered my arm a little. My arm angle wasn't exactly where I needed to be, and I didn't get the spin or the rotation that I wanted. So I like watching Schmidt pitch, and then I like hearing him talk about his pitching.
You know, the greatest thing is when you have, and I'm bringing up guys. Okay. Here's a prime example that you look at Coney. When Coney took the mound, I mean, I don't care if he was pitching for Toronto, if he was pitching for the Yankees, if he's pitching for the Mets, he was in total control every time he pitched. Number one, he had a great curveball. Well, I'm a really good running fastball, had a super curveball, but he was in total control. And, you know, Coney would tell you right off the bat, when he's out on the mound, he's cocky too.
Of course.
But you got to have that. I mean, hey, if I had a running back who's playing college football, I don't want somebody that's want to pick up 1 or 2 yards. I want somebody that will run over, you know, I take somebody like a Herschel Walker when he played at the University of Georgia, because of course I'm from Atlanta. And when he used to run over all the defensive backs, and you want somebody that is a gamer. You want somebody who's a mean type of person. You want somebody that, you know, he doesn't want to come out. And I look at Schmidt as a type of guy like a Coney or a Catfish or Mel Stottlemyre. They don't want to come out. They don't want to come out of a game. And, you know, not a lot of these pitchers now, they pitch 4 or 5 innings. They're about ready to leave. You know, they don't want to pitch.
They've changed the game, Ron. And Coney and I talked about that when we worked on the book together. And David was a guy who, if he had 100 pitches in the 5th inning, he thought, all right, I'm okay. I've got 30 or 40 more. I can get this game to the 7th or 8th inning. You get anywhere near 100 pitches now, and they're looking to the bullpen. We saw what happened in the World Series with Blake Snell and Tampa Bay. I think it was 60-something pitches. So it's the organizations that have made these decisions. I think there are still pitchers out there who would say, sure, Cole is one of them. Give me the ball. I want to go as deep into this game as I can. But when organizations are getting kids ready for the major leagues by only pitching them 5, 6 innings in the minor leagues, you imagine getting to the major leagues and this is the first time you're ever going to see the 7th inning of a game? That's kind of scary. That's kind of frightening.
I mean, it's really, really tough. I mean, you look at somebody like a Nolan Ryan or Steve Carlton or Gaylord Perry or Bob Gibson, you know, they're going to pitch 140 pitches. You know, I mean, that's their game. But nowadays, of course, I mean, we're just making like $12,000 to $15,000 a year. So, I mean, it means an awful lot. You know, people don't look at all the wins and the W and the L's anymore. They look at how much per pitch, how much every time they pitch, how much money are they pitching for? And I mean, it's. I don't know about you, and you know, I mean, whenever I get to the stadium, and I'm doing a lot of stuff with you know, Andrew Levy up at the suites and stuff, and I see Coney just walking by a lot, and you know, everybody talks about him. They, you know, they ask, how many innings is so and so is going to pitch tonight? Well, probably get 3, 4 innings in them tonight. You know, and you look at Coney. I mean, if you put him out on the mound now, I mean, he would love to go 9 innings. That's the type of guy he is. And so, I mean, it's, hey, it's the game is what it is now. And, you know, I mean, we played in the old days. And, but I think if you talk to a lot of these Facebook people and a lot of people in the Zoom, they rather go to a great game to watch a 2-to-1 game pitch, a 1-to-1 in the 10th inning. You know, people love to see games like that. I mean, that's fun. For me, hitting a home run and, and knocking in 5 runs and you losing 5-4 in the 9th inning, and then you win 15-10 or whatever. But, it's fun to face a pitcher that has great stuff and he's throwing a great ball game. And then you're the one they have a chance to win the ball game and get a base hit. And I mean, that means an awful lot to you. And I mean, and you probably love to watch those games, don't you, like Billy and Jim?
Question for Billy. As a younger person, what was your analysis of the Blake Snell situation? How did you feel about it?
I didn't like it at all. I mean, I'm around minor league baseball so much, and I see a lot of, how they treat them in terms of putting limits on their pitches and limits on the innings. And I mean, they're grooming them to pitch like that at the major league level. And I'm not a fan of it. I'm a mix between old school and new school. I see how managers manage out here in independent ball, and they've been able to guide me and teach me some things, and that's how they manage the old school way, and I admire that way as well. I'd like to take some of the new as well and mix it, but in that situation it's real, the feel of the game. In that situation you really have to not just judge what the analytics are saying, but you also have to go with your gut, and I think the Rays have trouble doing that a lot of the time, and they rely too much on their analytics, and so does the rest of Major League Baseball. And you have these older managers who are successful because they are going with their gut, and in different situations, pulling guys late innings, letting the pitcher help them decide that, and not just let the book or their iPad decide that for them.
Billy is wise beyond his years, because I'm going to tell a story that I know Ron knows this gentleman, and Lenny definitely knows this gentleman. Gene Michael was one of the smartest guys I ever covered in baseball. And one day, I'm going to go with the prop here. He had a big stack of numbers in front of him, and he was circling some numbers, and he was going over some things. And I was asking him, what was he looking for within those stats? And he held up the stats again. He said, this is all really important to determine what we want to do in winning a game. But then he said, so are these. And you have to watch what's happening in the game. So often now we'll hear that a pitcher is going to be removed because the third time through the order, his statistics against the batter rise. Well, what about if on that day, his stuff is the best it's been all year? I'll use Tanaka as an example. Say his splitter and his slider were moving better than they have all year. Doesn't that belie the stats that you just talked about? Shouldn't you go with what you saw on that day? So I kind of go hand in hand with Billy. I think that pitching and arms is the most important commodity in baseball. But I also think using your brain and seeing what's happening in front of you to make decisions can be just as important as the stats and the numbers that are telling you and guiding those decisions.
It's really important.
Thanks.
How about you?
Let's pretend we're at the Yogi Berra Museum, and I'm Bob Lorenz, and we're going to go to our audience for the first question. Billy the Bat Boy, what's your question? Of Jack Curry and Ron Blomberg.
Question. Oh, well, let's see. What other Yankees starters should they pick up? I mean, they got guys like Trevor Cahill, who's a cheaper option. He only made $2 million last year, I think. But I mean, there are several other pretty notable guys out there who could, pitch in the back end of the rotation.
You know what's interesting, Billy, is in our pre-show meeting yesterday, because we had a hot stove show yesterday, one of the guys that we were talking about, and I threw his name out there, was Musgrove.
Okay.
I like Musgrove with the Pirates. I said, I think this is a guy you could try and go and get.
Yeah.
Well, in the middle of our show, we find out that he was traded to San Diego. So that was the type of pitcher that I was looking for. Joel Sherman did a really good column in the Post where he pointed out about 5 guys who he saw as potential targets for the Yankees. But I even think those guys, some of the ones he pointed out, a guy like Hendricks with the Cubs, who the Cubs might be willing to unload, I think the salary is too high. I think, like I said, it's going to be one of these guys with a lower salary who might be able to come in and get a back end of the rotation job. Cahill, who you mentioned, somebody like that, somebody who fits
Right.
that mold.
Yeah, I mean, you also look at the bullpen. They're talking about Ottavino, possibly trading him to unload some of that money. You also have a lot of free agents who are relievers and played for the Yankees in the past, like Shane Green, Phelps, Robertson.
Yeah.
Possibly those guys could reunite.
They're all interesting names, but I also think the Yankees like their own pitchers as well. They've got a lot of young arms coming up. We got a peek at some of them last year, but we've seen King, we've seen Nelson, guy Yajure they like, kid who got a taste of it last year. So I think this is going to be a year, guys, where we're probably going to see teams set records for number of pitchers used, because you can't go from 60 games to 162 games as it's scheduled right now. I still think there's a chance that gets reduced, but you can't ask pitchers to do that and act as if everything is normal. So that's why I think they're going to be throwing more arms at the situation. You can't ask a guy who pitched 40 innings last year to pitch 150 this year. It's just not fair to him or his arm.
The injury rate is normally very high, so you don't want that across the league. Injuries going up.
How about Severino? How close is he?
They've talked about June or July with him, Ron. The one thing that the Yankees have said about Herman, who is coming back from that awful domestic violence incident and hopefully shows contrition and tells people he's sorry and wants to focus on making sure everything is okay in his world. They've talked about Herman and Severino maybe combining to be one pitcher for you in the year. So maybe between the two of those guys, you get 180 innings. Because with Herman, he hasn't pitched in a while. So you can't say Herman's going to give you 160 innings. And if you're not going to see Severino until June or July, maybe he's a 90 or 100 inning guy for you. The one guy I won't worry about is Cole. Not just because he's great, but because he's so prepared. That stat I gave you before about a guy not going from 40 to 150, I think Cole pitched around 70 innings in 2020. He'll pitch his usual 200, I bet, in 21, because he's just so prepared. He's so meticulous. He knows his body so well.
He's what I would look at him as like a catfish, a blue collar guy that will give you at least 7 to 8 innings every single time he's out there. And that's what you need.
I want to ask you a question. Did you ever hear Catfish say this? Coney told me this. Cone said that Catfish was so much a believer in his own stuff that if he gave up a home run to whomever, batter A, on a, say, a high fastball, second at bat, he would throw the same pitch.
Yeah.
He told Coney, I would say, let me see you do it again. This is the way I think I'm going to get you at. Let me see you do it again.
That's the type of pitcher he was.
Yeah.
And he didn't care about giving up a home run. But the home runs that he would give up, it was like a one-run home run.
Yeah.
You know, nobody's on base. And he's wound up winning 2-1 or 3-1. That's the type of pitcher he was. I mean, he would always give up a home run, always around the plate, had great stuff. But the best part about him is, of course, location. And I mean, this guy could, you know, I mean, he was unbelievable. I mean, if you, he was the best of the best. You know, you're going to get at least 8 innings in. You know that he's going to give up 1 or 2 home runs a game, but you know you're going to wind up winning 3-2. But that's the type of pitcher he was.
Billy, you owe Ron a question. Lenny put you on the spot. You owe Ron a question. Let's go.
Throw me a question, Billy.
Well, we didn't talk about Brett Gardner yet. So do you think they're going to sign him?
You're asking me or Ron?
I'm asking Ron. I'll take.
You know what? Let me tell you something. I would look at Brett Gardner as a leader on your team. I think he's pretty close to being. He's not an everyday player anymore, but he's an everyday position guy on the bench every single day to be a leader. The guy is RA. What that means is a red ass. That's the type of guy that you do need. Here's a guy that will get into your face if you're not doing anything correctly. Here's a guy that will look down a pitcher that if he comes in close to him. You know, I mean, you need somebody like that. Now, if you don't have him, who do you have to be an everyday Aaron Judge? Can you look at him to be a leader? Can you look at Void? Can you look at DJ? I never met DJ, but I heard he's fairly quiet. Am I right? He's fairly quiet.
LeMahieu's quiet. LeMahieu really wants his performance to speak for him.
Yeah.
I think you hit on one guy. I think Judge, without a doubt. I think Cole on the pitcher's side is a leader. But one other thing, Ron, and you should know this as well as anything, another addition that Gardner gives you is a bat from the left side.
Absolutely.
Right now, if you're looking at their lineup, Hicks as a switch hitter is the only lefty that they would have in their starting lineup. And they're very right-handed. That's who they are. Stanton, Judge, Voit, their power guys are from the right side. You'd like to be able to mix it up every once in a while with a lefty. And I think Gardner gives you that too.
Oh, absolutely. And especially in Yankee Stadium where right center field, if you hit the ball up in the air, it carries fairly well. And but Gardner is a guy that that he's number one, he's going to give 120% every single time he's out on the field, every single time. And here's a guy that he's going to get dirty, no matter if he's not playing. He's going to get, he's going to get dirty someplace. And, and he's a leader. You need that. It's not how many people always will say, well, this guy's a superstar. It's not that. You got to have a chemistry to win baseball games. And basketball, you can't have 5 superstars playing. You got one basketball. You got to have a guy that you got to have chemistry on your team. The Yankees need, I would say, if they're going to have 26 players, I would say that Brett Gardner is going to have, to me, you got to have him, even if he gets 100 ABs. A guy that will be on the team and to be that type of captain. Do you agree with that, Jack?
I do. I think they're going to have to thread the needle in a few ways. You mentioned it. What kind of roster size are we looking at? Because Mike Tauchman, who, though he doesn't have the resume of Gardner, and though he struggled last year, is a cheaper, younger alternative. He hits from the left side. He plays all 3 outfield positions. So if Gardner is willing to take a very team-friendly deal, because it would be for a low number, it might be for as low as $2 million a year. And I think he would. I think Gardner wants to come back and try and win with the Yankees for one more year. I've actually communicated with his agent in the offseason, and he said he expects to have a conversation with the Yankees as it gets closer to the 11th hour. They have had conversations already, but obviously the Yankees were working on bigger issues. But I like the idea of Gardner on the 2021 Yankees for all the reasons that we just spoke about.
Yeah, when you talk about, well, he'll just take a $2 million contract. I'm looking at me. I'm saying, hey, this time of the year, I tell my agent, I said, if you give me a $300 a year raise, I'm doing good.
What did you were the number 1 pick in the country. What did you sign for? What was your
$105,000. $105,000.
Did you splurge on anything? Did you allow yourself?
Yeah, I bought a car. I bought a 4.4 Oldsmobile 442, and it was dark green with white rim tires, and I think it cost me $7,000 for that. And people don't realize, but but this is wonderful. But baseball, hey, they make as much money as they want to. I don't care. Okay. But, when you're talking about, a DJ, and I was doing a little radio thing on the Zoom this morning. He just signed for 6 years, $90 million. George Steinbrenner bought the team for $9.3 million, I believe. He could have bought 10 teams.
Yeah.
I'm looking at this.
The sport has done very well. It's a $10 billion industry. So the owners are making money. The players are making money. 2020 was a rough year for everyone. But you mentioned George Steinbrenner, Ron. I need to tell you one quick George Steinbrenner story because I think your audience will appreciate this.
I love it.
When you cover the Yankees, you need to have connection with George Steinbrenner. You need to be able to get him on the phone. And When I first started out, I couldn't get him on the phone. I didn't have a relationship with him yet. He didn't trust me. Finally, one day, someone in the Yankee organization said, "You should be around your phone today. I think George is finally going to call you back." Well, I wasn't married yet. I was a couple years out of college. I'm still living at home with mom and dad. And the phone rings. And he just said, "This is George. I know you've called me a lot of times. I'm finally calling you back. I want to let you know, if you don't lie to me, and if we prove that we can trust each other, I will return your phone calls. But remember, I don't want you to lie to me." I said, "Great, Mr. Steinbrenner," and started doing the interview. And I'm taking notes, and I don't remember exactly what he was talking about, but he was giving me good copy, as newspaper writers like to say. He was giving me stories. All of a sudden, maybe 20 minutes in, you hear a click in the phone, and you hear a woman's voice say, "Doesn't anyone know there's a dinner hour around here?" And then the phone clicks down, and George says, "Who was that? Whose voice was that? What did she say?" Now, remember, he just said, "Don't ever lie to me." So I said, "George, that was my mom, and she wants me to come and eat dinner." And I was waiting for him to explode, and he said, "She's right. Of course she's right. It's dinner hour. Why are we talking? You should be with your family. Go have dinner." I said, No, George, I have a couple more questions." And he said, No, go have dinner with your mom and dad, and I'll catch up with you another time." I've never been so angry with my mother as I was in that moment. But as time wore on, she actually did me a favor. No matter where I was or how I moved from that point on, I think George always saw me as the kid at home waiting for dinner with mom. I better return this guy's phone call.
Let me tell you something. And people would always say, and to this day, he was probably like a second father to me. He was a wonderful, wonderful man. He's a guy that if you gave him 119%, he would destroy you. He will destroy you. You better give him 120%. I remember I was at a game, and George, of course, passed away. And Robinson Cano was trying to run the first base, and he never made it to first base. And I said, "There's no way in the world." George would have taken him off the field, taken his uniform off, put him in a car to Scranton nude. And that's the type of guy that's what type of guy he was. But he was a type of man that you would love to play for him, but a lot of people were afraid to play for him. And like a lot of people always took New York. If you could play in New York, of course you could play any place. But if you cannot play in New York, there's no way in the world you're going to be successful. And George was the same way. If you don't take him, but you got to understand him. He's a type of guy that he was a coach. He was everything all in one, owned the team, and he wanted you to do great. And he always wanted to bring a winner to the Yankee fans and to New York fans. And he was a type of person. And I know you talked to David Wells, and you talked to Coney, you talked to, Andy Pettit, and you talked to all those guys. But when he first bought the team in '73, and when we had Bill Burton, and we fired Bill Burton to get Billy Martin, and, it was a whole big transition in '73. And, he sat down with you and he said, "Whatever it will take to win. And I'm here. I got very deep pockets, and whatever it will take, we're here to bring a championship back to the Yankees." But let me tell you something. If you don't do something correctly, if you don't look good, if you don't, at that time, you had Donnie Baseball with his big hair and mustache, and if he didn't like your haircut, he'll give you a haircut in his office. He'll have a barber to give you a haircut. But that's the type of guy he was. He'll yell at you. He'll destroy you. The next day, back then, he'll give us like an envelope, like he will give myself and Piniella and Thurman and Tidrow and Stottlemyre an envelope with $100 in it. And back then, that $100 was a lot of money back then. He would yell at you. He would destroy you. But you really get in his face also, and he loves that. And he loves that fightiness in you. And when you go to the ballpark, you see a letter and you think it's your release papers, and you say, well, I'm hitting 350. How in the world is he going to release me? What? And then you'll have $100 bill in there. And that's the type of guy he was, Jack. And, I don't know if you ever saw him like that. You probably haven't, but we saw him when he first came from Cleveland, and Gabe Paul was a GM, and Gabe Paul was known to be a tough GM. And, but, you had Gabe Paul and you had George, and you had two guys that are very, very difficult. And if you could be successful with those two guys, you could be successful with anybody. And even the Steinbrenners now, Hal and Jennifer and all those people, we go up to the stadium. They're wonderful people to us. And, it's a family. And, and you feel that way. And you've been there for a long time. And you see some good times and some bad times. But, hey, it's the Yankees. There's no other team like the New York Yankees, and no other fans are like the New York Yankees. I don't care what you say, but it's great, Jack. It really is great.
Yeah, George was so proud to own the team. Obviously, that was his passion. That still exists today with the Steinbrenner family, and we could tell George stories for hours and hours. But yeah, I absolutely saw that passion and saw him interact with players. And you mentioned it earlier. He was a coach in his earlier days. He was a college football coach. And I think that always carried through him being a baseball owner. We talk about Steinbrenner in the book I did with Coney, and Cone said he wanted to be part of it. He wanted to sit in on some meetings. He wanted to be there for the pitchers meeting or the hitters meeting. He wanted to give pep talks. He liked being around the action with the players, and not every owner is like that, but George definitely was.
You look at when we first signed, when he first came in, Hopalong Cassidy was in Columbus. And you know that he was a Heisman Trophy. And he didn't know anything about baseball, nothing about baseball. But he used to come to the minor league games and used to walk around, and I'm Hopalong Cassidy. And nobody had any idea Hopalong Cassidy. They thought he was like Kit Carson and, Dell Evans. But he brought a person like Hopalong as a Heisman Trophy guy, a guy that became successful. And, and Hopalong wasn't the biggest guy in the world, but he was a tough guy. And his son was tough. He was a DB at Ohio State himself. And he used to bring these guys around, and he used to bring guys and, made you feel like, you're part of the game, and, you try hard. And he wasn't a type of guy who would give you a lecture, a pep talk. He was a type of guy that will destroy you, chop off your legs. But he'll, he goes by examples, and, and the type of guy he is. And you go up in the press box, and and how many times had this guy been fired with George, and how many times that the guy George brought him back the next day. But that's the type of guy he was, and that's what made the Yankees so good and was so special. And to be able to play in Yankee Stadium, and you go to Yankee Stadium every single day, and I don't know if you remember the old stadium. You probably didn't check the old stadium when we played, but the old stadium when you had, Babe Ruth there, and you had Sonny Liston and Cassius Clay back then, and you had the Pope back then, and you had all those old guys, and you had all the monuments out in center field where all the younger guys, all the young kids who used to get brought up to the big leagues, the first thing they did, they went to Yankee Stadium. They went out to those monuments and saw the Joe DiMaggios and the Mickey Mantles and the, people like that. It's just one Yankee Stadium. And now it's one Yankee Stadium now, of course, but when we played, it was one Yankee Stadium. Now it's the house that Jeter built, and, and maybe the house that Aaron Judge built, and people like that. But it's a great place to play, and people like yourself. He has the greatest people like yourself out. We didn't have Meredith, and we didn't have and we didn't have you, and we didn't have any of those people. But when you go to Yankee Stadium and people love you, and you're part of the Yankees, and you make baseball, and it's the greatest of the greats.
Yeah, very fortunate at my end to have had the opportunity to cover the Yankees for so long. It's about 30 years for me now. And I know in talking to Billy and knowing that the career that he has ahead of him, I don't say this lightly, but I feel as if I've had two dream jobs, because I was a sports writer for the New York Times for 20 plus years. And now I'm a baseball analyst for the Yes Network for going on 12 years. And if I had only had one of those jobs in my life, I would have been very thankful. But to be able to talk about or write about baseball, and that's my profession, trust me, I know that I'm blessed. And that's why, going back to what you said earlier, and you mentioned Elston Howard, someone like Billy, who I see the passion that he has, absolutely, I will be there to answer questions for Billy, to give him advice. This young man has been interviewing me, I think, since he was about 12, right, Billy?
Sounds right.
And Ron, as we're sitting here now, I'm the professional, and you've been around the game as long as you have. Who's got the best voice out of all of us? It's Billy. You hear this kid's voice? It's distinctive. It's authoritative. I had a Jersey City accent when I got to Fordham, and I was saying the Knicks play the Lakers tonight at the Hardwood at Madison Square Garden. This kid sounds like he could be on the air today.
I appreciate it.
Mention you're a sports writer, which is a great segue into something I'd like to hear about. Billy, if you want to throw it out to him.
Sure. It's about the Hall of Fame, your ballot. You want to talk about your ballot and maybe some of the guys who are on it and maybe who you did or didn't vote for?
I don't vote for anyone, Billy, who has tested positive for steroids, who was in the Mitchell report, which was obviously baseball's report on PEDs, performance-enhancing drugs, or someone who the scent of steroids or the suspicion of steroids is so substantive that I just can't take myself to put a check next to that name. So I don't vote for Bonds and Clemens and assorted other players. So right off the bat, when I talk about my ballot, I've got to talk about the guys that I don't vote for, because there are a lot of voters who do vote for those players, and I respect them. Bonds and Clemens are two of the greatest players I ever saw play. I wish I could vote for them. I think the easy thing is to just vote for them and say, well, everybody was cheating. Everybody did PEDs, but I don't think that's true. Everybody didn't do it. So I don't vote for them, but guys that I have voted for and have started to actually pick up some steam, Helton and Rowland and Billy Wagner I voted for. And then this year I added Andrew Jones. And I just started looking deeper at his career and the combination of power and defense, and I felt that he deserved a vote. I vote for Jeff Kent, who has more homers than any second baseman in Major League history. I think that speaks Hall of Fame to me, but other people don't seem to agree with me because he doesn't get a lot of votes. And then one of the tougher votes this year, I think he's a Hall of Famer, but he's made the waters murky with his own behavior and his own comments, is Curt Schilling. I think that a lot of voters have grown tired of some of the things that he has said. A couple of years ago, he said something about lynching journalists. I am a journalist. And he said he was being sarcastic. I kind of gave him a pass on that. I did vote for him this year, but as I said on the Yes Network, Billy, I feel like I've treated his candidacy with more respect than he has, because he's put himself in peril with some of the things he's done since his career ended.
I agree with you with the steroid guys, but even though you didn't vote for them, do you think they will eventually get in?
It's interesting, Billy. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but there was a period, maybe year 3 into year 4 or 2 into 3, where Bonds and Clemens went from something like low 30s to 50. They both shot up. And everyone said, well, they're going to get in now. Well, this is year 9. Yeah. And they had low 60s last year. And if you look at the tracker on Twitter that Ryan Thibodeau does, he has them both in the low 70s now. But the one thing about that tracker that he has done is the number always goes down when the final tally comes in. I think it's going to be a photo finish. I think they're going to end up in the mid to high 60s this year. And I think it's going to be a matter of, do guys, because it's year 10, do guys like myself say, okay, fine, they're this close. Everybody else thinks they're a Hall of Famer. Here you go. And I'm not saying I won't do that. I think about it every year. I talk to people who have played against them, and I get their opinions. I talk to managers who have managed against them, and it's a really delicate balance trying to figure out what you think is right. I mean, Ron, you played the game, and to me, if somebody did something on the field that tilted the field in their direction in terms of cheating, I have a hard time wanting to honor that person.
It's hard. I mean, it's, but, you have to look at, okay, here's a prime example. You look at Gaylord Perry.
True.
You look at Gaylord, and I mean, he was, gosh, I mean, he got in.
Celebrated for what he did, and that was cheating too.
Yeah, he did. He would tell you he did. He would do everything with his hat, and I mean, he would. But if you look at that, I mean, it's now. If he was just coming up now, and if he was doing all that stuff, would you vote for him, Jack?
That's not a question I expected, and that's a great question. I would probably say this, that he was suspended only one time in his career. So for all of those gyrations and all those histrionics, he was only suspended once in his career. So whatever he was doing, I hate to say it, he never had an umpire who threw him out of a game other than that one time. So I think I would vote for Gaylord Perry. Maybe people would call me a hypocrite. He was doing something on the mound, doing something to the ball. You're not supposed to deface the ball. Putting something in your body and taking the edge over another player, that just seems even more sinister to me than somebody putting a little Vaseline or a little perspiration, or maybe taking the ball and rubbing it against their belt buckle a little bit.
Yeah. Nowadays, I mean, it's very difficult for a pitcher to really rub up the ball because at every pitch, they just throw it out. I mean, the owners would be yelling at all the umpires, don't throw out all the balls. We're going to be running out of baseballs. But nowadays,
David Cohn and even Mariano Rivera have both told me that when they got a ball that had a scuff on it, they knew what to do with it. I mean,
they loved it.
Knew how to take that and
they loved it.
Throw the ball in the direction. The scuff is going to add a little more weight, so that's what you want to do as a pitcher. I've watched CC Sabathia, who won 250 plus games. Billy, you watched the Yankees. CC Sabathia, he's throwing the ball out. And I asked him once, he said he just likes a white, crisp ball. That's what he wanted. He wanted it to be as pristine as possible.
Everyone's different.
The old guys, I mean, they love a scuffed ball. Yes. I mean, nowadays, the last out, the pitchers, they half the pitchers say, throw that baseball back to me. Now, if it's a fly ball to center field, they'll throw the ball out in center field and let the fans catch it. Right. But, it's very difficult nowadays. Do they still use the mud that they have always did in Mississippi? Do they still do that?
They do. And David Cohn is so against that. We actually it never made it into the book. I wrote a little bit of a chapter about that, and David Cohn thought it was ridiculous that a Major League Baseball, this fantastically run league that's worth $10 billion, puts mud on its baseballs. Like you got to get this mud from New Jersey and rub it up on the baseball. And he said it's not done by the umpires. Maybe back in the day it might have been done by umpires. And when Cohn was with the Mets, he said he and Ron Darling, and he got this trick from Ron Darling, they would say to the clubhouse kid, put a little extra mud on it. Well, what's that going to do? That's going to make it tougher for you as a hitter to see this ball. If it's supposed to be white, but suddenly there's a little extra mud on it. So Cohn didn't like that. He was actually a proponent of the Japanese baseball, which comes with a little bit of stickiness on it, a little bit of tact that you can throw the ball a little better. So yeah, they still do it, Ron. That's still part of the game.
They used to get the mud. I'm never going to forget. In the minor leagues.
Blackburn mud, I think it was called. Something.
Oh, yeah.
Like that.
No, they used to get it from like Missouri or someplace in
I think it's New Jersey. I think it's New Jersey.
Oh, it's in New Jersey. They used to get the mud. And the umpires used to, in their locker room, they would used to sit down with all, with their equipment is off, and they rub it up the balls.
Yeah, not anymore. The clubhouse kids are doing it now.
They do that now. Oh, they do that now. Hey, it's totally changed. But hey, but whatever, you know what? It is. It's still a great game. I mean, you probably played so much when you were growing up stickball. Am I right?
Stickball and wiffle ball. I love both of those things. Absolutely.
They're great to play. Wiffle ball is great. Great curveball.
Yes.
Were you a pitcher? Or could
No,
you
I
hit?
was not. When I played baseball, I was a shortstop in Little League, and then the kids got better and they moved me to the outfield in high school.
Well, that's
Jack, I'm sorry to interrupt. I really got a good question from the audience. Are you going to vote for David Ortiz when he gets on the ballot?
That's a great question. Based on what I just laid out as when I vote or don't vote for guys, if I follow that same format, David Ortiz was listed on the list of PED users. The New York Times had a story that actually led to testing. He has denied that. He is saying that wasn't the case. Those names were supposed to be kept private. They weren't. But I would say this. I don't want to answer yet because I don't have my ballot in front of me. But if you read the tea leaves, the ways that I have voted in the past would probably tell you the way I would vote in the future on him.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, I said to you before that my mother called for dinner. It's not my mother calling right now. It's my wife calling. I'm going to roll. You guys
Jack.
cool with that?
Hey, Jack, thank you very much. I love you, big guy. Hope we could see each other during the season. And again, thank you very much for doing this for
Ron,
me.
it was my pleasure. Great to see Lenny and Joe in the shadows, and always great to hang out with Billy. So
Thank you.
I really appreciate you having me on, and best of luck when your book comes out. Make sure you let us know at Yes, and we'll give it a mention for you.
You got it, Jack. Thank you very much, Jack. Thank Billy again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We love you and everything like that, and we wish you the best of luck. And I know I'll get to see you. Go eat, go have fun, spend time with the family, Jack. Love you, big guy. You be safe, and we'll see you real soon.
Take care, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great night. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Billy. Great show. Want to talk about? Oh, he left again. Oh, that means my phone's going to be ringing any second now. Can you hear me, Joe? I don't hear you. I guess I'll be. All right, guys. So that was another show. Next week, if you're still here, next Tuesday, we have a good one. We're going to be talking Yankee Red Sox rivalry with Ron, of course, Fred Lynn, Louis Tiant, and Marty Appel. So hope to see you next week. And thank you for joining us tonight. Love you all.